Welcome, merry listeners, to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
This is where we unwrap the enchanting world of Hallmark movies and the occasional Asian dramas.
As we dive into these cinematic journeys, we're not just recapping, we're embarking on a therapeutic adventure.
Think of it as our cinematic self-care session.
And no, we're not just casual spectators. We're here to dissect the undercurrent messages, unravel the complexities, and even spot those not-so-magical moments of unhealthy behaviors.
And through it all, we'll be infusing our own unique perspectives and life experiences along the way.
Get ready to snuggle up as we explore the cheer, the charm, and the occasional cheesy wonder of these festive films.
We have a very special episode for you today. I cannot wait to introduce our special guest. If you're new to our pod, this is the Breaking Script podcast, usually with Lala and Nini. This is Nini here today. We are sister-in-laws on a mission to advocate for mental health and normalize therapy, all while spreading glimmers, which are the opposite of triggers, and sharing ways we've discovered to open our windows of tolerance. And we do this through watching Hallmark movies. And if you haven't yet, the Hallmark Channel original series that is quickly picking up a cult following. It's called The Way Home. If you haven't watched it, you definitely want to. And our goal eventually is to get to Asian dramas this year. But be sure to listen to our Triggers, Glimmers, and Fluffy Eggs intro episode if you're not familiar with what triggers and glimmers are, and also our love letter to Hallmark to learn more about neuroscience and polyvagal theory. I'll link it in the show notes. So how do we make our Hallmark movie and the Way Home watching experience a self-care and a therapeutic adventure, you ask? Well, we do this by breaking script. We love food and boba, so instead of breaking bread, we break script. Get it? Get it? With Hallmark movies, using our unique 4 segments we use to break down the healthy and unhealthy romantic and family relationships and behaviors in these shows. So we sprinkle in our own experience and what we've learned through our own therapy journeys about neuroscience, polyvagal theory, internal family systems, and more. In fact, our most popular episodes surround topics like covert abuse, betrayal trauma recovery, religious abuse, narcissistic abuse recovery, HSPs, grief, cptsd, and post-traumatic growth, etc., etc., etc. I bet you could not believe that we would broach these topics by reviewing Hallmark movies, but we do. And our goal is to bring you guests that entertain, but also educate and bring more of these topics to the table. We will be bringing all kinds of guests from different backgrounds to the table, but our first 2 guests have been dear friends. I feel so rich in these friends that I can be so real with, and I can have a safe space in which I am deconstructing or deprogramming with. You loved our first guest, Heidi Mills, and her Soul Care 75 workbook, which combined betrayal trauma recovery with learning more about our nervous systems. And today, I have another wise sister friend I can be so real with. We have known each other for over a decade, and even in the years we only talk a couple times a year, we've had similar tough experiences, but we can discuss truth and wisdom, even the hard topics most sisters wouldn't approach, because there's rarely a topic we can't broach with one another. We all need these sisters in our lives that are a safe space to have real talk with, even the hard conversations with. So our lovely guest today is the founder of Whole Single Woman, which is an online community that offers life coaching and classes to help women heal as they prepare for marriage. In fact, Whole Single Woman has reached international waters, serving those in Canada, Africa, Asia, and even Eastern Europe. This woman is a multi-passionate and multi-talented lover of God. She has her master's in public health and her real estate license, but she is also a writer. She has authored a real book, y'all. And she is an incredibly talented, anointed musician. Adrianna Wilder can sing, people. If you've had the privilege, you know it is incredibly healing to hear her sing. She and her husband Kenny have been married for over 2 years and are expecting baby boy Prince Wilder this summer. So without further ado, let's get into it. Adri is such an incredible communicator that we were actually able to weave her story and her message through our review of the Mahogany special on Hallmark Channel of Unthinkably Good Things. This is a movie about Allison, who at a crossroads in her career and love life is in need of the love and support of her 2 friends, Melina and Risa. And when they visit her in Tuscany, the reunion causes each woman to re-examine the state of her own life and relationships while they have different personalities and perspectives, they know each other's truths and help to make life-changing decisions. Between the good wine and delicious food and a healthy serving of romance, we'll determine if that's healthy or not. It's set against the beautiful backdrop of Tuscany. The three women relish in the importance of friendship and inspire each other to make this next season the best one yet and to take the leap to pursue the life and loves they have always wanted. Here we go. Welcome back to the Breaking Script podcast. This is just Nini here today. I cannot wait for you to listen and hear our guest. And you've already heard what our movie is going to be here today. What I didn't realize is that our movie today was the first ever under Hallmark Mahogany, which is the greeting card brand that has honored and celebrated Black culture for more than 30 years. And in 2021, it now has new content because, listen, girl.
And
Let's talk about it.
We are glad that Hallmark decided to give Mahogany a chance on film.
That's right. Drum roll, please. Let's hear Adrianna Wilder's take on when I first said, first of all, we've been planning this. We've been talking about doing this since December.
Yeah. Right.
This one has got a baby in the oven.
Yes.
And so
I
we've
was
been
sick
like,
in December. I was like, I couldn't do it. I tried. We tried, but it wasn't working. So yeah.
Okay, but listen, we are today recording the 40th episode. We've both turned 40 in the last 4-ish months.
Yes.
And I cannot even, like, nobody could have planned this. This is like divine timing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That this happens to be Valentine's week.
Yes, that we're talking about all of this. And
we're going to talk about all this.
Yeah, we're talking about all of this, and God has just so much. We can see God in our life, even in that aspect of love and all that stuff. So it's just crazy. So I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to be here. As you heard probably in the intro, Adrianna has a course called Whole Single Woman.
Yes,
did I say that right?
Yeah, my online community that I manage, and we run courses for single ladies to do two things: bring healing as a foundation to prepare them for marriage.
I just love it.
Mm-hmm.
And what Adri doesn't know, I haven't told her this yet. I was saving this for when we got on. So first of all, this idea wasn't my own. I felt like it was a divine idea given to me, like, go do this podcast. I was like, really? I have so much more to do. Like, why am I doing this? This makes no sense. But I started, right? Listen, I have more important things to do. Why am I going to do a podcast about Hallmark movies? It makes no sense.
Right.
And I only started watching Hallmark movies because I needed something more calm for my nervous system and for something for my daughter and I to watch when she was recovering from surgeries, because she's in teen years, but she's special needs, so it's hard to find something that fits. But I realized something also, because I couldn't stay awake for a time, and I realized, like, it was a trauma response. Like, I just did not enjoy love stories. I wasn't that girl that was raised like, that Destiny's Child song that was like the Charlie's Angels theme song, like independent woman. Listen,
right.
That was like my anthem.
Okay. I get it. Yeah.
That was my anthem. My mom did not raise me. I was not like planning my wedding as a little girl. That just wasn't me. I was like, listen, let me get close to my 30s, make my first $1 million. And then maybe, like, when I don't need a man, maybe I'll look for one.
Mm-hmm.
Those who know me and know my story, which we're not going to talk about today, are laughing because I couldn't have done any, like, extreme opposite of that.
Right.
And I'm still deprogramming. I'm somewhere in between now. But did you know that your love story was the first love story that made me fall in love with love stories?
Wait, my love story? Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Okay, I need you to unpack that. That's okay.
That's why I'm doing this in real time.
Wow.
I just wanted to tell you.
Oh my God.
I remember so Adri's going to tell her story. But she was single for a time.
Yes.
And I met her when she was single and prayed along with so many of my single, incredibly strong women friends, like beautiful, like, why are you single? And waited with them and prayed with them. And you were falling in love when I was on my way to divorce, or I had
Yeah.
after my divorce,
Yeah.
and I had a friend who had some marriage issues, and I remember her telling me, like, her marriage was getting healed and restored, and she was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay with me telling you? Like, is this too much for you? Like, is it hurtful?" And I
Wow.
was like, "No." And
Wow.
that's when I realized, because you shared your love story with me, I actually
Mm,
fell in love with love stories
that's
because of you.
crazy. That's crazy.
And so we get
Wow.
to hear it
Well,
today.
I'm like sitting there like, okay, Lord, this is pretty cool and bigger than I expected.
It's gonna be so healing.
Yeah. Wow.
So listen, we're gonna dive into it because I want
Yeah.
you to dive into your love story when we go into our first segment of what's love
Yeah.
got to do with it. Okay. We're gonna
Yeah.
full stop go there. Um but let's talk about this movie. When I said, "Will you come on this podcast and review a movie with me?" What's your
Yes.
history with Hallmark movies? And
Um,
what was your thought about that?
so Hallmark, I have a love-hate relationship with Hallmark. I love their cards. They're great. I love that they
Yes.
have the mahogany brown. Their movies, I had to stop watching them because I was like, why are they so white? I mean, all the characters look the same. You always had the Ken doll and the Barbie
Yes.
girl who had her hair dyed brown. And I'm like, listen, y'all, like we need something more like, some exec who has to go home to this like country scene to do something with her family and then she falls in love again. It's just like, and I'm like, can we have some realistic things? So
That's
I
right.
I mean, I wasn't really excited about the Hallmark issue, but I was like, okay, I turned this movie on and I'm like, it actually really shocked me. Cause I thought it was gonna be super low budget and bad. I ain't gonna lie. I was like, they giving us the scraps, the bottoms of the barrels.
That's
And but
it's
I
good
was
content
surprised.
to rag on, right? But
Yes. I was surprisingly shocked. Like all the girls were black girls, like,
yes.
and
What
not
happened here?
trying to be, white girl. So that was great.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was so hard because I was like, "Oh, okay." For those of you that have listened to the podcast for a while, you know I struggle with the mahogany movies
Yeah.
because to me it's like, and I low key like want to promote, like, just get the word out there. Like, somebody needs to create like the Asian American BET. Like, we don't have
Right.
enough, like, K dramas are getting big and that's great, but we need more Asian American representation out there.
Absolutely.
And so, how does it make you feel? Like, tell me, how does everyone in the Black community is going to feel different, but how does it
Mhm.
make you feel when you have, like, okay, Hallmark, two other ones that we were trying to watch was
Right.
Advice to Love by, which was
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
a black girl matchmaker and a black guy columnist who had like different takes on how to find your soulmate. Like, one was
Yeah.
science and one was all feelings, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that could be so good. That could be really
That was
interesting because we're talking about whole
right.
single woman. Like, this could be great. But I was like, listen, that movie was like, let's stick two black characters in a
R
white movie. And that
Yeah.
was the one that we didn't end up watching because I just couldn't make it through, where the female lead called the vagus nerve a vagus nerve. And I was like, I can't, nope, wrong vag.
Yeah,
We
that
can't do that.
was yeah.
The other one I had really wanted to do was To Her with Love.
Yes.
Dude, To Sir with Love was my mom's second favorite
Oh.
movie. The first favorite movie
Oh
was a
my
love story. Her second
god.
favorite was To Sir with Love. So To
Mm.
Sir with Love has it has, powerful, like, freedom writers feel.
Yeah.
It's a meaningful movie for me. Anyway, how does it make you feel, like, when people are like, we're trying to understand your culture more, but, like, for me, like, when they try to eat, like, oh, I had a fortune cookie or I had crab ragoon, and I'm like, that's cute, but it's not Chinese. Like,
Yeah.
and then like Mahogany is like, okay, you're trying more. Like, you're trying more than putting black characters in a white. Tell me about
Mm.
this. Tell me what representation means to you.
Yeah, I think authenticity is so important.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like I won't say we, but in American society, it's just like trying to put, cultures within the dominant American framework that's here. And that doesn't work because everything, like my history is different, my where I
Yeah.
come from, all these different things, like, and so it can be very frustrating because it's almost, you know how when you have and this, I want to put a disclaimer out there. I love white people. I have white people in my family.
Amen.
Like
Yes.
it's really not a personal thing, but I am, even as a believer, I am able to see things very black and white, and I'm like, listen,
Hmm.
I truly believe that in order to appreciate someone's culture, someone's identity, you really have to understand it. And you can't just try and use the same framework, you know what I
Right.
mean, and just place them
Yeah.
inside of it. And, I think sometimes it's that cliche, how like white people will sometimes say, well, I have black friends. And I'm like, yeah, you just messed up right there. That was the statement. I was believing you until you gave that disclaimer, And it's the same
Mm,
thing as like Hallmark is like, well, we have black movies. And this is like, okay, this one was great. The last one. I did not watch To Her With Love. Like some of the photos and images from it, I was like, okay, I don't know if I can
yeah.
do that one.
Same,
But
same.
this one was actually, it was really good, and I do like, the different storylines that they have. I like that they had black men that were
That's
with
right.
these black women, which I love. I even love the interracial part too, but that wasn't the
Yes.
dominant theme, you know?
Amen.
And so I really
Yes.
appreciate it. It showed black men who were strong and sensitive and confident and willing to chase after their spouse, which, and listen, I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but I posted the other day. I said Hollywood has always been interested in putting black men, making them less
Yes.
masculine, making them
Yes.
putting them in skirts and dresses. It's been a theme
Oof.
since I've been a child and since before then. And I'm like, to actually see that. So I applaud Hallmark for doing that and for doing it well. So I hope they just
Wow.
continue on. Don't regress. Just keep on going.
Let's
Don't
just
go
keep
back.
on going. Keep
Let's keep
moving
on.
forward. Let's keep
Right.
moving forward. Well, so then tell me then, on a scale from 0 to 10, we call them boba ratings. What would you rate it on 0 to 10?
Honestly, I'll give this one a 7. And
Same.
yeah. And I feel like that's good. It's a solid
Yeah.
7. I think in some ways I could probably nitpick and say maybe a 6, but I feel like a 7 is really solid. I love the way it ended with the relationships coming together, and it wasn't like,
Yes.
I also have an issue with p- individuals, producers, or whatever, or agencies, whatever, that put out movies, and it's like the black people are all ratchet, and I'm like, listen, that is not
Yes.
reality. I said that's what you want us to be, but
That's
my mom
right.
didn't raise me like that. Like, I know how to speak. I have a master's
Amen.
in public health. Like, I'm very articulate, and when
That's
I
right.
go in front of someone or do a speech or something like that, I don't have to use slang. Now here I might get down and dirty with my
That's
girl, but
let's see it.
but
Yes.
not that is not the mode, you know what I mean, or the
That's
modus
right.
operandi of all black people. And so
Yeah.
I'm thankful that this movie did
I
not
would
show that.
yes, I would say it took it from a 6 to a 7 for me, like, showing 3 black women go to Tuscany.
Uh-huh.
Thank
Yes,
you,
that was
Hallmark.
amazing. Yeah, and one
Thank you,
woman
Hallmark.
living there, she had a degree, she was working there, and then the other one's like, let's just pick up and go see our girl. That is reality. Like, I don't know how many times I've done that in my life where I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't seen this person in a long time. I'm going to pick up and go. Black people do
Yeah.
travel the world, and not just to Africa. Like, I'm
Not
like,
just to Africa.
no.
Preach it, girl.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. Okay, well, if you're new to our podcast, we have 4 unique segments that we use to what we call break script with Hallmark movies. The first one is called What's Love Got to Do with It? It's where we talk about glimmers, what we love, and we start to break down the romantic and family relationships here. So, do you have some glimmers here or what you want to
Um,
highlight in this movie?
so I saw, like, one of the biggest things that was in the movie was the communication or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
Even between the relationships themselves, even between the
Yes.
friendships. Like, there was, see, this is the challenge that we have. We have a problem. Listen up, America. We have a problem with true vulnerability. Like,
Yes.
and we're always trying to figure it out ourselves or put on our best face, or, like, for example, when me and my husband got married, we made a promise, like, we're going to have to learn how to communicate about everything because we're so both headstrong. that if we
Yes.
don't communicate, we're just going to end up being roommates living together. And let me tell you something, I did not wait this long to find my mate. Okay, getting married at 37 to be a roommate. I want a
Amen.
lover, a friend, and all those things. And
That's
so
right.
I think the communication piece and the lack of communication was just very evident, even with friendships. And I remember God told me this
Yeah.
one time, and I use this example a lot when I'm ministering to single women. Um, I was this one young lady, he was, talking to me about her and sharing some things. And I was like, okay, God, like, what's going on with her? And he
Yeah.
said that she has not trusted her heart to even the same sex as in friendship. So
Yes.
how can I entrust her to handle someone else's heart in the opposite sex like a mate? And
That's
so
right.
she didn't have true depth of relationship. And so, and I see that that's very prevalent. You know how many people, women
Absolutely.
walk around, it's like they have stuff going on, but they don't even have the relationships, number one, to talk it through.
That's right.
But then they don't actually, if they have those relationships, they're not honest and true.
Right.
And that really is a big challenge, you know what I mean, for women and for
Yeah.
the single community. So
Absolutely. Well, let's just take a moment. I said we were going to go here.
yeah.
Let's talk about you. Let's hear your love story first and tell them, because you just mentioned like you were 37 when you got
Yeah.
married. Talk a little bit about that journey on the way there, and then let's
Yeah.
dive into your love story.
Yeah. So let's see. I got married in 2021. Yeah. So that was yep. So I was about to turn 38. So I was like 37
Yeah.
and some change. And God, that was ended up being a God thing. I remember saying to myself at the time I was living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I was like, ain't no way I'm gonna find my husband here. Because Pittsburgh, I said the pool in Pittsburgh, I said, God, you need to dump this out and try again. I was like,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is bad.
yeah.
So, but I end up meeting which is crazy. I'll try and give one day you'll have to have both Ken and I on because it's a great story.
Yes, I would love
All
that. Oh,
together.
girl, we're gonna do that. Now that you
When we
offered
tell
and
it
volunteered him, you're welcome, Kenneth.
right.
Thank
When we
you.
tell it together, it's pretty cool. But so
Yeah.
we met officially and started dating in 2020, but
Hmm.
the year before that, we met and I did not remember that. And when
Wow.
we met a year before, literally the same month. We met a year before.
Crazy. I love it.
And what happened during that time was that he met me, he saw me from afar and he was kind of interested. And my friends who are, now my pastors here in Ohio, who are his pastors, were like, she's celibate to the Lord, she's really like dedicated to God. And his comment was like he saw me, and of course I'm curvy, I have hips, like, God has, I'm built like a brick, right? House.
Oh, Lord's blessed her.
And so he was like, that's really selfish of her. That's what he told her. He's like, to really hold that back. And but then like it was maybe like the same day or it was at a conference they were visiting where he saw me, and then like that same day or day later we actually had a conversation that I don't remember, and I didn't remember
Wow.
until he brought it back to me. But after that conversation, he looked at his past and said, I would never marry somebody like her. He was like, literally, he was like, she's nasty. And mind you,
I wish you
yeah,
could see my face right now. We need video. What?
yes, I was like, she's
You did not tell me
nasty.
this part.
I know. So what was happening during that time is that I was under a lot of stress. I was over the prophetic rooms. I was running hundreds of people, and they came late to the prophetic rooms, and I told them they couldn't go. I said, now, mind you, it was probably wrong that I told a pastor and his entourage that they couldn't get in the prophetic rooms after the bishop of the church told them that they could go. But I was just over it. I was like, I'm ready to go home. So,
I do.
yes. So that was our first interaction. So fast forward a year later, my dad had died about a month before our next interaction. And I was coming to visit my friends, the pastors here, and I said, they said, hey, when you come, we want to introduce you to somebody. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I really didn't have much hope like that was gonna be the person.
Yeah.
And she sent me some video and pictures, and I was like, oh, okay, well, he's not my type. So I really wasn't feeling it. And I wasn't his type apparently from a year before.
Right, right.
And so
Love
I
it.
show up, and it was just a moment where he took me off guard because I'm so used to men being intimidated by me. I'm so
Mhm.
used to being strong and, like, them,
Mhm.
like, not being as strong or them trying to be controlling because they're trying to be strong.
Oh,
And I remember
mhm.
walking into the church because Thursday night I went to the church to visit, and I actually had to speak that night. The pastor asked me, he's like, "While you're here, why don't you just, share with our worship team?" And I walk in the sanctuary. This dude, okay, he's 6'3". He walks over to me and
Yeah.
like gives me the biggest hug. And I'm first of all, I'm like, you all up in my space. I'm like, I don't know if you don't see the RBF on my face, but we don't do this. We don't do this.
We don't
I
do
said,
this.
I am from the East Coast. We have boundaries.
That's right.
And he literally just broke through the boundaries and gave me the biggest hug, and it threw me off. But you know what it did? It
Wow.
took me back to a
Mm.
dream that I had in 2015 or 2014. And in
Wow.
that dream, I was in the dream and I turned the corner and my husband was there and it was a tall, dark man. I didn't remember this dream. It was a tall, dark
Wow.
man, and I was startled by him. And when I woke up from the dream, the only thing I remember is that I knew who he was. I would be able to submit to him.
Shoo, girl.
And I was like, and so when I met him, I didn't put it all together. But as our story began to unfold, me as a strong person, I mean,
Yeah.
I had a hard enough time submitting to leadership. So I was like, and the love that the Lord gave us, which of course, hearing the voice of the Lord, being a prophetic person, I'm like, Lord, I need you to tell me, is this my husband? Is this my husband? And the Holy Spirit kept telling me,
Yeah.
he said, walk it out. He said, I'm not going to tell you. He said, you choose. You choose. I said, oh
Wow.
Lord. I said, I don't believe in this. I said, I need you to tell me so I don't make a mistake. And the Lord kept telling me, you choose. So we
Wow.
started dating. He knew how to pursue my heart. He knew how to deal with, I mean, because I was a very strong person and also I mean, I didn't mince my words, but God had
Right.
to teach me how to talk to a man because I had been so
Wow.
used to being around men in work and ministry that the way I talked to them was not the way I need to talk to my husband. Okay.
Wow.
And so the Lord used
Profound.
him to woo my heart. And we had about a few months, and like every month I would be like, what you gonna do? Like, am I the one? Are you gonna propose? Like, what's happening? I needed something definite. And he was like, I don't know soon. And I was like, I was so offended. I was like, this brother, does he know who I am? Does he know the type of person in my mind? I'm like, he needs to move on this today. And
Right, right.
but God was working
Wow.
on my heart, and it was about a few months in, and we had a very we from the beginning we decided we're gonna lay it all on the table. We don't have time. Like, he's 6 years
Yeah.
older than me. I was 30 when we met. I can't remember how old I was. Maybe I was 35, about to be 36. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we laid it out all out on the table, and we did hard questions. We had hard conversations, but those hard conversations were what we needed being older
Yeah.
to say, is this what we're choosing to go into? And then a few months
Wow.
into it, about November, we had a very intimate moment of conversation,
Mhm.
of like his life, my life, our backgrounds, things that we had gone through. And everything I
Yeah.
heard from him made me love him more. And so that's
Yeah.
how I knew. I knew that it was God, because for me, I mean, when guys would tell me certain things I wanted to date me, I'd be like, nope, you ain't the one. I'm done. I ain't got time for that. You bringing drama into my life.
That's
And
right.
um,
We
and
don't
so
want no
I would
scrubs.
I mean, I had a very, very available no to many men. It was just like, no, no, no. But with this one,
Yes.
it was like he got under my skin and into my heart.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was surprised, and I didn't know
Yeah.
I would be surprised. I thought that I would know my husband from the moment that I saw him. Um, but that wasn't accurate.
It's
Because I
not a certain
didn't.
way, right?
Yep. And he just loved
Yeah.
on me, and things that I didn't even know that I desired. Like, I'm generally, I mean, I thought I was a very simple person. Like, I don't need a lot of things. Like, you don't have to, for me, like, we can go on a walk in the woods, and I think it's the best thing ever. But this
Yeah.
guy was inviting me into things that, though other guys may have tried to do it, it was almost like I could feel that he was doing it from love and
Wow.
not trying to get something out of me, not trying to just, make me arm candy or whatever the case may be. So yeah.
Yeah.
So then yeah, and then about 8 months into us dating, he set up this amazing surprise proposal at the church in front of everybody on
Everybody.
Sunday morning, the day he got ordained. And yeah, and then so that was that. And then after we got engaged in February of 21, we married in November of 21. Yeah. And then that was what this part of the story is very interesting too, which we always laugh at. So I had to go through, I mean, I've done a lot of inner healing. I'm a
Yes.
proponent of it. I'm like, work through your junk, ladies. That's part of what
That's
hosting a
right.
woman does. It helps you work through your junk. Well, I thought I had worked through my junk. I was like, I'm the prize. The Bible says that he that findeth a wife.
That's
Now
right.
you the one that's getting the favor. I'm all right. And he literally said to me before we got engaged, it was January of 2021. He said, he had just come back from doing a stint of inner healing. It was about a week's time. And he literally
Mm,
said to me, he said, if you don't do this, we will not get engaged or married. And
yeah.
I was like, first of all, you ain't telling me what I'm going to do or not do. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, God, here go this dude again. Like, who does he think he is? But then at the same time, it melted my heart that I was like, all right, I'm gonna go. I'll do it. You know. And I went. I needed. The Lord was unearthing stuff that He
Yeah.
needed to deal with that I did not know was still there. And if He did not do it, I don't think I'd be married to this day because I think I would have been looking in my husband for what only God could provide.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we got engaged. And that is actually what officially launched Whole Single Woman. I started my official online platform that same year. The Lord just gave me grace. It was almost like He kissed it and said, now it's time. But I needed to
Yeah.
go through that healing. I needed to have the journey of choosing. And now I can help women walk through, like, stop being so deep. Do you like him?
Yeah.
Is he all right? You're working through his stuff. Okay. Do you
Yes.
enjoy spending time with them? I don't care if you ain't have a dream or a vision. You only see in part anyway. I said,
Amen.
I'm like, just it's
Why are you
okay
making it
to
so hard?
why
Yeah.
making it so hard? We want everything to be mystical. I mean, I thought I was gonna see my husband, like outside somewhere and the angels and music was gonna start. And the Lord was like, no, no woman of God, choose. I about to say no nigga choose. Okay.
That's right. Choose. You
So
have choice. And that's
yeah.
huge.
So that's our
And I think,
story.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, keep going. Keep going. Finish
Yeah.
that.
So, that's pretty much our story. And of course, once we got engaged, I was like, I want to get married in June. We got engaged in February. My husband was like, we're not getting married in June. So I was like, let's do it in September. Well, the only date that was open was September 11th. He's like, we're not getting married on September 11th. And I was just like, and so to this day, I am like navigating this space of God has allowed this man who takes such great care of me to also have authority to be able to speak into my life in wisdom. And so we got
Mm-hmm.
married November 6th, 2021. I moved. It was a crazy thing. The same week that we got married was the week that I moved from Pittsburgh to Ohio.
Shoo.
I changed careers that January. We got married November, changed careers that January. Started real estate and something totally new, moved from public health to real estate. It was just like, it was a whirlwind of 2 years. So then began our journey of like navigating living in the eye of the storm.
Right. Yes.
Because
Amen.
when you get married older, which I'm a proponent. Listen, if you're in your
Yeah.
40s, if you're in your 50s, don't be one of them people that's like, well, maybe God just don't have for me. Listen, if you still desire marriage and your body parts are confirming that you still desire marriage, you better go ahead and put some prayer on it and let God do it. Because people be acting like that.
Preach, girl.
Listen, you know what you do when you get home because you like, Lord, I need somebody to satisfy. So just be real about it and just say, okay, God, I need you to supply so that way I can satisfy the right way. But anyway,
Amen.
that's a story for another day.
Yeah, it is. But I'm so glad you went there because it's
Yeah.
so different than what I hear so much of the messaging out there.
Oh my God.
I love your story because it's like your own story preaches that message in and of
Yeah.
itself. And I think that's what I love so much. I remember, listen, this girl right here, she's our second podcast guest. We talk like what do you think? Like maybe once or twice a year, maybe?
Yeah, once or twice a year, which is
Right?
surprising. We used to talk often when I was in Kansas City, but yeah,
Right.
now once or twice a year. Mhm.
But you are the type of friend, which we'll get into because it like we talk about friendships through this movie, but you're the type of friend, like, girl, if I know that even though we only talk once or twice a year, if I text you and I'm like, sis, I need prayer on this, like right now,
Mhm.
I know that you're
Yeah,
on it and that you
yeah,
got my back. And like,
yeah,
if I'm truly having trouble, like I can't BS, like you would call something out if you needed to call something out, like,
yeah, yeah.
and what I find fascinating, even with the friends that you keep up with like once or twice a year, you'll have those ones. I find it fascinating. We've known each other. How long have we known each other?
I met you in, I think I wanna say 2011. 2011.
I think it was 2008.
Mm-mm.
No?
Oh, no, because the first time I was out there in Kansas City was 2009.
Oh, okay. So you're right. You're right.
Well, I was out there in 2010, so it might have been 2010. It might have been 2010.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, either 2010 or
Okay.
2011.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. Yeah.
But over these, gosh, more than a decade,
Mhm, yeah.
when I check in with you, there'll be things in our lives that there's like parallels that the Lord's speaking to us about,
Yeah.
and we can
Absolutely.
go there, you know?
Absolutely.
And I
With
find it fascinating. And oftentimes it'll be like mental health or
Mhm.
just certain topics surrounding mental
Yeah.
health.
Listen, we need a part 2 just to talk about mental health because that's a whole 'nother issue that is
We're
ignored.
gonna do that in the second segment.
Yes, we're gonna do that in a
I
second.
want you to, if you don't mind, some of
Yeah.
what you shared on that podcast with Summer. I would love for you to share
Yes.
when we get to the
Oh,
second segment, please.
yeah. We can do that.
Because this part was about the love stories. But what I loved about your love story was so we check in once or twice a year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think I spoke with you at least twice, like after you met him before you got married.
Mhm.
And I remember the hard part. I
Yes.
remember you being like, girl,
G
this is no joke. How did you do this?
Yeah, I'm like, this is real life out here. I'm like,
Yeah.
you living with a whole person. It's like you want to get like you can't even get away. It ain't
Yeah.
you can't there's no escaping. Like y'all just always looking at each other. I'm like,
Yeah.
Lord Jesus. Yeah. God has given us
But
a way to work through stuff now, but I'm just like we had to work through some stuff. It's we would have these moments where we would both be when I say both, if you guys meet my husband, we're both headstrong. So we would just have a moment where we would be going like button heads and then we would just be quiet. And we're just like we both were like, I don't know who going it was almost like a standoff. We were like what you gonna do? What you gonna do? Like we're looking at each other. And then we went to a moment of when we would have arguments, then we would
Mhm.
laugh. Like God would just let holy laughter enter our
Aw,
home.
I love it.
Because if he didn't, we probably would have killed somebody. And I don't know if you guys know anything about the Enneagram, and
Oh, yeah.
some people it's very controversial for a lot of people, and whatever the case may be. But on the Enneagram, I'm an 8 with the wing of a 7.
Oh, yes.
He's a
Mhm.
7 with the wing of an 8.
Woo,
And
shooey.
so when you look up those, they say either you guys will be amazing at whatever you do or you'll kill each other.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Okay.
We understand now. We understand. So we better work on this because if
That's
not,
right.
somebody gonna find the bodies. You know what I mean?
That's
So
right. That's right.
yeah,
That's
we've had to
hilarious
work
that
on
you
it.
say that. I thought I was like a 1 or a 3 for years, more like a 3. And everyone's like, "No, you're an 8." A lot of people experienced me as an
Mm,
8. And it wasn't until last year that I was like, I'm
wow.
a 5.
You're a 5.
I know everyone is shocked when they realize that.
I didn't know that.
I'm a 5, but people
Oh.
experienced me in the past as an 8. I'm such a different person now. But,
Well, because I experienced business you when we first met, so I definitely would have pegged you
mhm,
as an 8 or a 1,
mhm.
an 8 or a 1.
Right? See, listen. I think I
Uh-huh.
was raised to be like a 1, 3, and an 8.
Got
And
you.
so I put it on, girl. I put it on. But that's what I loved. And you actually even used the words. I actually wrote it down. Like what I loved about your love stories, I watched you melt. Because we're both that like strong, independent, listen,
Yep.
Destiny's Child, independent,
Yep.
like I had my homeboy record it
Yep.
off the radio and put it on my voicemail when it came out.
Right.
Like I watched you melt, but also like it wasn't like a listen, we need another podcast for this because there was a
Right.
podcast that I listened to that like triggered topics of misogyny. That's a
Ooh.
whole other thing that I'm like, can't wrap my head around. But you didn't melt in a way when you said submissive, it wasn't like I watched you lose your voice. I
Yes.
watched you come alive.
Yes,
There's a
absolutely.
huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was such an honor. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that with me. And that's why I
Yeah.
so wanted you on. I couldn't remember
Yes.
if I told you that before. I've told so many other people, but we only
That's
talk once or
crazy.
twice a year.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm like, well, no pressure.
It's a good thing I didn't tell you ahead of time.
Right. No,
Um,
that was really good.
yeah. So
I'll have to take a hike
anyways,
for that.
yeah, I know. Now and I love that idea. I want you both back on cuz
Yeah.
girl, when I watched your Zoom where you had like the gender reveal, I was like, "Oh, I see it." Cuz I haven't met him. I haven't met him in person. So like
Yeah.
just that Zoom video, I was like, the wedding, that's different. But watching you
Yeah.
guys, your personalities in that gender reveal, that was
Oh my God. And that's the thing
everything.
about it when you said I came alive. I did not lose myself because I allowed the process to take place. And I want to say so often I love movies, but remember this is happening in an hour and a half
That's
where they fall in love.
exactly.
Love
Exactly.
is really a process, and
Mhm.
it really is. You have to do the hard stuff. One of my girls just graduated from my class last year. She got in a relationship shortly after. Now she's engaged, which is amazing.
What?
But I watched her go through the process, the hard stuff. Like we would meet regularly, and she did the hard work. And I
Wow.
find that a lot of times women, we always say there's not eligible guys, but are you an eligible woman? Are
Amen.
you doing the work? Or do you
Mhm.
know who you are? Do you understand your personality? Do you understand that, you know, I watch people get in relationships and I be looking like, no, you know that ain't gonna work. Because you're looking for something with your natural
Right.
eyes. And just to be honest, love is a spiritual thing. It's not it
Yeah,
starts in heaven. It starts in the spirit realm. And I
that's
know we
right.
make the choice in the natural, but love is something that God placed inside of us from the beginning of time. It is who he
Wow.
is. And so
Yeah.
that spiritual reality is to be manifested on the earth. But guess what? Our soul can get in the way. And if we don't do the
Mhm.
work that needs to be done,
Yeah.
then we have the challenges. And I know you can speak to that. I know
Yeah.
we both can. We've been in situations where, either we were doing the work the other person wasn't, or vice versa.
Right.
And it's women don't want to hear that, but that's why I
Right.
love, that you guys talk about this stuff. And I love just your expertise even in, being able to of healing and all of
Yeah.
that, because it's so necessary.
It
And not
absolutely
just
is.
spiritual healing, but also
Amen,
natural
girl.
healing. Some of y'all need a therapist.
Thank you. That's what we're
And
about to get into in
and
this
and,
second segment.
and some medication.
You hear that?
Yep.
This is Jesus
So,
in therapy up in here.
yep.
Um, I know we're gonna break it down even as we get, because honestly, probably most of breaking down even the relationships in the movie is in the second segment of the Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls, where we break down unhealthy behaviors and coping mechanisms. Because it was all up in the friendships, it was in
Mhm.
the romantic relationships.
Yes, yes.
So if you didn't watch the movie, you had a professor, a university professor, which I love. I'll save it for the next segment. I only had one thing for the next segment, but you have this professor who apparently is paid enough to live in Tuscany in this like beautiful. She could buy
Mansion.
couture and live in a mansion in Tuscany on her
Yes.
professor
And of course
salary.
of course I was watching all her clothes. I was like, "Oh, okay." So I said, "What's her salary?" I need to go to Italy.
Yeah,
Kenny, we need to move to Italy. I need
something.
to be somebody professor.
That's right. That's right. She's not even tenured yet,
Right.
and she's out there. Um, and she's fallen in love with an Italian, but like not admitting, like she's trying to keep it temporary because she needs to go
Yes.
back to get tenured in the
Yeah.
States, which like let's be real here, sister. Um, and then you have a Melina, played by Joyful Drake, who's a cancer survivor and a
Yes.
new restaurant owner who's struggling to the point where she can't even tell her friend she's struggling But I love that they were portraying all these women walking into the new. I mean, girl, can you talk about that a little
Mm,
bit? Like what that was like? I feel like so much of that, because then you had Risa, played by Eric Ash, who was retired military, trying to figure out what to do with herself. Because when you're
yeah.
military, you're running like 100 miles
Mhm.
an hour. You run from like
Yeah,
100 to 0, or 100 to 60, and it feels like you're at 0 and you don't know what to do with yourself. Can you
exactly.
speak to that? Because you experienced that, where it's like you're getting married, it's a new relationship, it's all things new. You even had that career change.
Yeah, that slowing down thing is real, and I think I've experienced levels of it since being married. I think just recently experienced the biggest part with being pregnant, which, I'm like, I was the kind of person, I had 8 ideas, we gonna execute all 8. Since I've been married, it's like, "Okay, I got 8 ideas, let me try and get to these 4." Now
Yeah,
that I'm pregnant, I'm like, "Imma get to half of this today,
you can get to
and
that one? You gonna do one thing today?
listen, half of a thing today." I'm
Amen.
So the
That's
Lord had
right.
to really, I was so used to being the one to figure it all out, and my husband said something to me that was so key. He said, "Adriana," because I didn't have confidence that someone else could take care of me the way I could take care of me. And,
Yeah.
that comes, from trauma from childhood, you know what I mean? And
Right.
from different
Exactly.
situations when I did put my trust in other people and it fell through. And so I had built up this mindset of like, I know I'm gonna take care of me. Even if I
Mhm.
have the most amazing husband and he's doing his part, I'm still gonna make sure I take care of me.
That's
And
right.
he said to me, he said, Adriana, if you're trying to figure out how to provide for the household, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And the thing is that he was providing, but in my mind, I was still saying to myself, I need to provide for my household. I was still looking at myself as an individual. And he's sitting here like, I'm your husband. I'm the
Yeah.
head of this home. Let me do my part. Like, stop,
Yeah.
stop fighting, not even with him, stop fighting with the realities of how God has set this up.
Mm.
And when he said that, I was like, oh, that might be a problem if I'm trying to figure out how I could be the head and he's supposed to be the head and he's doing head stuff, but I'm like, I want to do head stuff, And
Yeah.
and so that was an invitation for me to just stop. So I started having like some health challenges too. Last year we had a miscarriage. I had surgery, we had a miscarriage, I had biopsies. It was just like one thing after another. And
Yeah.
then I got hit with major anxiety and depression, started seeing a therapist. So it was like all these things started happening. It was like almost like the
Yeah.
dam was just like building up and it was now cracking and breaking, and
Mhm.
I had a choice. I said either I can deal with this stuff and slow down or I
Yeah.
cannot. And it was to the point where it was such a wrestle for me because I'm so used to working a lot.
Right.
Like I love I used to love, I break that in the name of Jesus. I
Yeah.
used to love the idea of be like, I work 60 hours a week and I did this, and that, and I did, and I used to love that idea. But in
Yeah.
August, after I started seeing my therapist, which that first meeting changed my life, um,
Mm.
and I want to get this T-shirt that says it. For somebody probably already has it. Like talking. What does it say? Talking to Jesus. I don't know. I have this like phrase in my head about like talking to Jesus and your therapist and taking your meds and doing all this stuff.
I love it.
Yeah. So I remember in August that like I was like, though I was more healthy, I was still trying to figure out
Mm.
how to be um how to navigate the slow space, how to navigate the
Yeah.
wind down and the I was like homegirl in the movie where I was like,
Exa
what
I
do I
felt
do with
that.
all this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know how to live outside of not being on the go all the
Right.
time, to the point
Right.
where like from like July until like September, I had applied for like 60 jobs. Like and my therapist was like, you might have a little OCD. And I was like, she walked me through that, and I was like, "Well, I just wanted to." And then I finally got this interview
Yeah.
with this job, girl. I nailed it. I was like, "That's it right there. It's gonna be what I'm." And girl, don't you know? I would have had job. They were like, "It would have been you, but we decided to promote from within. You made me do all that." I said, and it was the South. I said, "Oh God."
Oh,
So I slowed down a little bit, but then I applied for like 30 more jobs. Then But
this is
throughout this
real
time
life.
of
This
God
is real life.
saying no, I had to keep
Yeah.
choosing every day to be like, I had to like my therapist had to tell me, like, I literally had to be like, I'm not going to apply for a job today. I'm not going to busy myself. And then through that, I did get an interview at the same place because I wanted to work at that company. If you want something, I was like, I want
You
to work
want
at
it.
this
Yeah.
company and I want to get paid this much and da 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 da.
Hmm.
So I eventually did get I did get a offer, but then I got sick because I was pregnant. So I got an offer at the beginning of my first trimester. Girl, I couldn't get out of bed. Or said, and that's what I was wrestling. I was like, I want this job so bad. Girl, if I had to take that job, I would have had FMLA my first 3
But,
months.
oh my God.
And they wanted me badly too, because I told them, I said, I'm real sick from this pregnancy, y'all. They said, that's okay. It'll get better. It
Wow.
wasn't for me. And so God was teaching me, it was almost like you can either choose to slow down
That's right. Yeah.
or life will cause you to slow down. And so now
That's
I'm in this
right.
phase where he told me not to take that, and it has me focusing on, the more business aspect of things that we do, because I know I can step into that role,
That's
and
right.
be more of the entrepreneur that God has called me to be. I just wanted the job
Amen.
because it was a consistent paycheck, because I was telling myself that's what I needed.
That-
And God was saying, that's not what you need. You need to listen to me. So yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
I've learned to
incredibly
slow down.
powerful.
Yeah, yeah. And
I
I'm
mean,
still learning it.
I listen, girl, I wrote a book on rest. It's a
Yeah,
constant journey.
you
It
did.
doesn't end.
Mhm.
He
No,
takes it to a level that you could never have imagined of surrender
exactly.
and abiding. And um I love that. I mean, that's what was portrayed in this movie on so many different levels through all the
Yes,
characters' journeys. And you could feel it. You could feel the slowing down, right?
yes,
Towards the end of the
yeah.
movie.
And even
But
the being present. Being
yes.
present. All of them had to have a moment where they had to be present where they were.
Yeah. And the
Mhm.
way that they did it for one another and held that
Yeah.
safe space for one another to like call each other out like, no, girl, you got to
Yes.
slow down. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
okay to chill out. But we're going to love each other through it all. I want to ask you to share. It was something that stood out when you were talking with Summer. Um, I think this is so important in a relationship that you don't have one relationship that is your be all end all. I think
Mhm.
oftentimes, especially in the church, I think sometimes we're set up for failure in marriages because we don't learn to manage our expectations
Woo.
of what one person can give,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And we have such high expectations of like what healthy marriage should or shouldn't look like. And
Yeah.
listen, it's not a certain way for everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
You
not.
you come from
Mhm.
different histories. Like when someone's preaching from a stage or giving a course or you're reading from a book, they're speaking to a group. They can't
Mhm.
know your unique situation and speak
Yeah.
specifically into that. So you have to take context
Yes.
into account. But we have such high expectations that if you could just share a little bit about how you got to therapy when you needed to last year, because
Mhm.
your husband wasn't trying to be all end all. He actually asked you to phone a friend.
He did. So, this is why you got to have the right people around you. And
Amen.
God really, before I got married, something that God really challenged me on was cultivating healthy relationships with females, with same sex same sex
Yes.
relationships. Yeah. And so I did. And so, one of my friends who he always is like sometimes I'm like talking about something, he'll literally be like, "Oh, have you talked to Summer?" And I'm like, I know what that means. He probably like he don't have the answer. He don't want to talk about it. He like, you need to call your girl. And or he'll say, did you call your girls and see what they say? What you think you should do that? And he's always like doing it as a suggestion versus saying you need to phone a
That's
friend,
right.
and so I was going through that depression and anxiety, and I remember calling Summer, and I was
Yeah.
so depressed, and I didn't know that I was. This is the thing about depression and mental
Right.
health. You can be high functioning and not
Yes.
realize you need help.
100%.
And she literally said to me on the phone, she was like, "Do you think you're struggling with depression?" Like, she's so kind, right? And I'm like, "Oh, I think I might. I think that might be it." So I get off the phone with her, and of course I call Kenny, and I'm like, "Kenny, guess what Summer said?" Like I was praying about it. I knew you needed some help, but I didn't know how to. I didn't want to force nothing on you. I just, I'm glad you talked to her, and I was like, well, I'm glad too, And he had been
Oh,
praying about it for months at this time, and then
yeah.
finally I had that moment, and that's when I called another good friend, Tara, and I said, Tara, you got a referral for therapist? I break it down. I think I might need some medication or something. I need help. I just at this point I was just so broken. But it was that
Yeah.
friendship that brought
Yes.
that that brought that awareness. And I I remember a long time ago when I think I was living in Michigan at the time. I was on staff at a church. It was very stressful. I was dealing with depression, but I was trying to lose weight and I went to my doctor. Now, doctor's gonna prescribe you a pill. They're gonna give you a pill
Mhm.
for everything. You
Yeah,
want a pill, they're gonna give you a pill.
that's right.
And I remember saying, trying to, do a pill. They were like, hey, they use these pills to counteract something. It was they were like, but they also use it, for weight loss. And I said, she was like, the side effects are so minimal. She's like, nobody ever has side effects from this. And the side effects were depression.
Oh,
Who
Lord have
guess
mercy.
who got depressed from this pill? The one
Uh-huh.
that said, "I was just trying to lose 10 pounds. That's all I was trying to do. I was trying to take care of my health, lose 10 pounds." Girl, that little tiny pill
Same.
made me feel
Mm.
so depressed. I was locked in my room with the lights off. It just
Oh,
had a bad
girl.
effect. And I remember my friend speaking to me at the time and saying, she literally looked at me, she said, "I think it's the medication." The minute she said it to me, I began to
Wow.
laugh, and it was almost like the joy of the Lord was my strength. And um,
Whoa.
that scripture came to my mind: "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." I dumped those pills in the trash. I never struggled with that level of depression, but it was the pills that brought it on. So I say that to say we need people in our lives that can speak truth and that we can be honest with.
That's
So
right.
that way, when they need a moment, when you need that line of truth, when you need to see from another vantage point, you need someone
Mhm.
to be able to check you and say,
Yeah.
like, I don't know how many times I call my friends and I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, all right, y'all, I know I'm seeing a little backwards right now. I need a little help. At this point, I'm like, I'm not even gonna fake it. I'm messed up right now. And they begin to speak that truth
Yeah.
and it resets us.
I
We
know,
don't we
girl.
have such a hard time with vulnerability and with true relationships. And even looking at the movie, like the girl's business was failing and she lying to her friend's
Her
face.
friends. I
I'm like,
know.
what is up? And then the other one is like, she's looking she's looking at an apartment, but she's like, "But I'm not leaving them. I just need a break." Girl, you married. You just can't
You're
go look
buying an
at a you
apartment?
can't get a 6-month lease. Like, what are you doing? And then it was the other girl who she was literally interested in this guy, but she was so afraid to tell her friend. She just because of the
Yeah.
trauma she had been through. And
That was real.
I'm like, listen, we shouted from the rooftops. You need to be able to have some people that you can be transparent with, and you can
Yeah.
let your business be known.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
But it was the way they portrayed it, I felt like was so real. Like that's real life. Like that
that is
happens. I
real.
was
Yeah,
proud of them for doing like that was real
hmm
life.
that was
But
real.
speak into that, like friendships like that take time. And I remember, there may be seasons where you're like, I don't have that right now. And so I want to
Hmm.
speak to those of you that are listening, like, I don't have that right now.
Yeah,
Don't be discouraged. It takes
yeah,
time.
yeah.
You gotta fight for it. And girl, I have watched you fight for
You
it.
have to fight for your relationships. You really do, and it's not easy. You have to have an awareness that it's necessary. If you don't think something is necessary, you're not going to fight for it. You're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna pursue after it. And
Right.
so I watch ladies sometimes and I'm like, if only they would have friends, like true
Yeah.
relationships, they would be
Right.
much better. They would,
Yeah.
the Bible says that iron sharpens iron. Like, so does
Yeah.
a man sharpen the countenance of his friend.
Right.
And a lot of times because of hurt and different things like that, we keep things in. We don't want to let things out. But you have to make a decision. And this is the part that people don't understand. People want, we want God to make our lives perfect, but we don't want to make no choices. You
Mm-hmm.
have to decide that you want relationships with others. You have to decide that you want friendships and then you have to pursue them. I ain't never met
Exactly.
somebody like that, you want to build a relationship but you don't want to talk to nobody like that just ain't going to work. Like, you know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like and sometimes it's
Exactly.
trial and error. I've had friends in my life that I've had to cut off. That I was
Okay,
like,
that was literally I was like, "Can you talk about That was my next. Can we
Right.
talk about this? Because listen, that was the next segment is Oi with the poodles already. We talk about plot holes, continuity issues, wait, what's, but also what we don't like.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they were portraying some of how their friendship was working, it'd be like, if this isn't healthy, then you got to
Yeah.
do something about it.
Right.
Right? But
Yeah.
can you speak to that? Like, I don't know how you go with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
flow, like if how much you want to share, but what are some signs of like, okay, it's time to say goodbye and it's okay?
Yeah.
Because
I
sometimes we
think
can
that,
be so loyal to the point where it's hurting both
yeah.
parties, right?
And I think going into every relationship, understanding that may not that person may not be a lifetime person, or that person is not perfect, or maybe you think they're a lifetime person, but you may see some shifts with them, anything like
Yeah.
that. And I think you have
Yeah.
to be, the Bible tells us that we need to be truthful with ourselves and with others. And
Amen.
so it's okay to see how your relationship may transform, and you may realize this person no longer applies. It doesn't mean that we're not cordial, doesn't mean
Right.
that we can't, exist in some type of way, but we have to choose when things are unhealthy. That is the
Mhm.
biggest part. And I have found, I had a friend a long time ago, and I had to, release her, and we had to put some distance there. And every now and then I still check on her because there's nothing else there.
Yeah.
But for a long season, I had to cut her off because we had ungodly soul ties. We were codependent. We were,
Yeah.
everything was us. And I was like, but that wasn't God's design, And so I
Amen.
find that if you have friends that aren't okay with your boundaries, that's a red flag that
Yeah.
you need to be aware of that, and you need to know where to put them. Now I have people, both like we know a lot of people. I'll say it that way.
Yes, you do.
But I understand, I have very healthy boundaries when it comes to friendships and relationships, that just because I'm familiar with you does not
Right.
make you a friend.
Right.
And one thing I do to make sure I don't give you friend vibes. I give you sister in the Lord vibes. I'm gonna call you sister. Some people had this thing they call everybody. I don't call everybody friend, because
Yeah.
by your word you shall be justified, by your word you shall be condemned.
That's so
I don't
good.
want to have that type of level of accountability if I'm not going to do it. And
Amen.
there's different level of friends,
Right.
but you have to have that understanding of what that level is. But I think a lot
Yeah.
of times we want everybody to be our friend, or we want to be a
Yeah.
friend to everybody, but that's not the design. It's okay. Like Jesus had 12 people he
Mhm.
was hanging out with. He
That's
really
right.
had 3. He really
That's
had
right.
1.
That's right. Amen. Preach it.
And they
And
all were
especially
important, and they were all important to his mission.
exactly. They all
Yeah.
had a place. And it's okay if there are some times where friendships, like you said, like it's different seasons in life or different times and it shifts. It's not necessarily anything negative.
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to be
Yeah.
longer term. And
And
if
if
you're
you
trying to
can't
force it, it
refine,
can go
yeah,
unhealthy.
exactly. And if you guys can't refine one another, that's one of those things. You have to
Yeah.
be able to sharpen one another. If every time you say something to somebody, they get an attitude, or they act like you offended them, or this or that, that's for you
Right.
to you make that note and be like, okay, well, go
Yeah.
ahead, Lord. It might be some time to put some distance there, because you have to have a healthy understanding and be on the same page um in those relationships. And personally, at this point in my life, I just try and make those clear from the beginning, so that way there's no confusion.
Amen.
Because I just know my capacity, and also I want to steward life well.
Amen. Capacity. Isn't that the word these days? Watch
Mhm.
your capacity, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, I love that. I loved that. Let's talk about it. So our last segment is the Jayo Fighting Happily Ever After, what we think happens after the movie and who we are rooting for. There's something I wanted to bring up here because I feel like what was happening in these friendships in this movie was there was some walls up because there was a fear of vulnerability. Even though these women had been walking with each other for so long, this friendship had lasted. The movie starts off with like they rescue one of them out of a toxic relationship, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
escaping, so they run deep, and they have their dance, right? They have
Yeah.
their thing that they know when they have certain milestones in life. They have held joy and sorrow in the same cup. When you have
Yeah.
friends that you can hold joy and sorrow in the same cup,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
run deep. And
Mhm.
so, but one thing, again, that podcast with Summer was fire, that you guys brought up that I really want to talk about, and this for me is the happily ever after, is embracing weakness.
Mm. Come
And I
on.
feel like that's what I would hope that these women continue to do for one another in
Mhm.
this movie, in
Yeah.
their friendship, but also in their romantic relationship, is all those walls, like, in a healthy
Yeah.
way coming down.
Mhm.
Um, can we talk about that? Can we talk about embracing weakness
Yeah.
and what that's looked like for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about the one who wanted to get pregnant, and we think happily ever after that everything is just going to be amazing, but what if she never does? You know what I mean? What if does she
Yeah.
have the ability to truly let go? Cuz it's easy to be weak when life is good.
Ooh, that's
When
real.
life is not good, it's harder to be weak cuz you're trying to control.
Mhm.
And so I have found a joy in my weakness. I think one of the ministries that I was a part of really helped me to be vulnerable and weak with other women when I was struggling with, had my own journey of struggling with masturbation. And
Mm,
I remember being in that place of struggle and challenge. But I had to, made a promise to myself that when I fell, or when I thought I was gonna fall, didn't
yeah.
always do it beforehand, but when I
Yeah.
fell, that I would confess. And the
Yeah.
confession of our souls is so important. And the Bible lets us know, for me, like if we confess, we'll be healed.
Yeah.
So in the place of our weakness, there's healing.
Amen.
In the place of our uncovering, there's healing. And I've watched so many women who are either they just want to be strong or they're too ashamed to
Yeah.
embrace weakness.
Yeah.
They're too ashamed to embrace another identity because of the identity they've always been associated with.
That's so
And
good.
so for me, marriage, pregnancy, learning marriage before I got married, all of those things have been about embracing the fact that, Adriana, you don't have it all together.
Yeah.
You never will have it all together.
Mhm.
You're going to cry a lot of times because you want to have it all together.
Right.
But Jesus is like, I want you to be weak. And I think, even some of the challenges we're seeing in the body of Christ is because pride has told us that we're strong when we're actually
Right.
really weak. We're
Exactly. That's
really
not what
weak.
strength looks like. That's not
No,
what we've defined or look up to as strength is not real strength.
exactly. And there's times
Yeah.
when, I'll go to my husband. Like I had a moment maybe a couple weeks ago and I kept coming in and out of the room. He was doing some work and I kept coming in and out of the room. I was like, I realized after I was like a cat or like a puppy. I was just like, "Doo, doo, 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 doo." But I realized I texted him and I said, I wanted prayer that night, but I didn't know how to ask you.
Wow.
And he was like, and he just, we were texting each other because I think he was at work. And he said, he gave me the words to say. He said, next time, just say, I need, whatever he said, like, I'm in
Yeah.
need of prayer. I don't know how to say it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But that was big for me because here I am, intercessor, you know what I mean? I'm supposed to be the one that covers my husband. Of course, he prays for me as well. And I don't like to bother him, especially when he's working during the week.
Mhm.
But that's also me just trying to be strong. And I realized, like, in that
Ooh.
moment, I literally felt like a puppy. Like, I was like, I need something from him. And I
Mhm.
was I just didn't know how to do it. But that is even saying that I need something from my husband, like even saying, boo, we need some
Listen.
sex time, like we need intimate, like all those things,
Yes.
like those break down these
Mhm.
walls that we put up to that say that we have it all together. And I think
Yeah.
that that is what we need to, our happily ever after is tied up in our weakness. Our happily ever
Whew.
after is tied up in our weakness. If we truly want the happily ever after, we're going to have to embrace the fact that we need others. We need those that, are in our lives, that we need the resources that God has given us, therapy, that we need medication. We need all these things. We
Yeah.
were never when everything happened in the garden, God was like, "All right, y'all gonna need some help now because y'all done messed up," you know?
That's right.
And so he has allowed for help to come. And
Yeah.
that's in a variety of ways, and we can't over spiritualize our weakness. And we're seeing that
Amen.
a lot. Like,
Yeah.
no, you are not okay. I
Right.
am not okay. A couple weeks ago, I was not okay. And I did not know how to say it to my husband, but now I have the words because it'll
That's so
happen
good.
again. That I'm gonna be weak and I'm gonna need his prayers. Like I'm gonna, be weak and I'm gonna have to call you and be like, you better help me because
Yeah.
I'm feeling a little
I
weak.
know.
So I don't know if
Yeah.
that speaks to it, but there is such a
Absolutely.
beauty in embracing weakness that is the happily ever after. It's not apart from our brokenness.
No. I mean, what a soundbite. Your weakness it leads to your happily ever after because it
Mhm.
is, and it's part of we
Yeah.
talk a lot on the podcast about windows of tolerance and knowing our capacity and healing our
Yes.
nervous system. You do
Mhm.
have to slow down in
You
order
have
to
to.
move forward with your
Yeah.
nervous system. You do have to, for me, an affirmation, being an entrepreneur and, having sometimes a higher capacity to function. And sometimes my unhealthy was over functioning.
Yeah.
I had to learn like my new affirmation that really helped
Mhm.
me was I am human
Yes.
and for that to
Yes.
be okay. I am
Yeah.
human and I have capacity limits.
Yeah.
Like, and listen, I think one of the places I find it the most, like, yeah, you said it so beautifully. And I got married
Mhm.
young and had kids young. And so it's been the story of my life. Like, you learn your limitations.
Yeah.
You learn to slow down. Children are a blessing because the slowing you down with children is a good thing.
Mhm.
Um, and I will tell you another thing that really I'll get so frustrated, and this is when I will like legit allow myself to get in touch with my anger because
Yeah.
sometimes I need to get healthy touch with anger in order to identify what I need. Because if I suppress it, it gets all ugly. But grief.
Mm.
Grief is another one of those things where anytime that comes back around, and grief has such very physiological
Yes. Yes.
ramifications to
Absolutely.
it, pieces to it, where I'm like, I don't got time for this,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you can't rush it.
Mm-mm.
And so you have always been one like there's just those rare friends that that'll be like, listen, I don't got it all together. Even if we
Yeah.
talk, I'm not going to be all
Absolutely.
rainbows and sunshine today because I'm in like a grief process.
Yeah.
Um, and when you're in that grief process, like, yes, admit that your weakness, but you also have to manage your expectations in terms of who you can be vulnerable with
That's
and who
right.
to share that weakness with, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Who does
but
your
yeah,
life overlap with in those moments of, in that season of grief? When I
yeah,
was grieving my father, my life did not overlap with everybody that wanted to reach out to me.
yes,
But, even to this day, it's funny. My husband never met my father, but there's things that my husband will do that remind me of my father. And so it
wow.
will take me through in and out of these moments of, oh, you're still processing that. Like I went to the store. I do not like cantaloupe, but I went to the store a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, and I bought cantaloupe. That was my dad's favorite fruit. I'm eating
Oh,
cantaloupe, but it's because I'm grieving my father.
amen. Wow.
I'm
That's
remembering who he was.
yes. Isn't that
And so,
powerful how our bodies know?
yeah, our bodies are reaching for something. That's not the Lord didn't tell me to go get no cantaloupe. You know what I mean? That's not spiritual. That's not over deep. My brain was like, I have a
Wow.
list of foods that I'm eating right now while I'm pregnant, and like that was on there. And for some, I'm like, I would have never picked that. I would have never
Wow.
picked cantaloupe. I looked at it and I
Wow.
was like, cantaloupe. And I've been eating cantaloupe because it reminds me of my father. There's
That's
other things that I've
beautiful.
been doing that I'm like, I'll have these moments. Like I still have not deleted. I used to take care of my dad's like finances and stuff for him when he started getting
Yeah.
older. I have the alerts on my phone. Still have one alert left that I have not deleted. He passed away in 2020.
Yeah, I get it, girl.
And
Listen, it
it
takes as
comes
long
up
as it takes.
every
It's
other
okay.
Friday on my phone to do, take care of some moving money around and stuff like that. And I'm just like, hmm, I'm still grieving. I'm still in the
Absolutely.
process.
That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Just
Yeah.
take your time, people. There's so much of our world is grieving. There's so much happening. There is
Yeah.
so much grief globally.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in your own community. Like, just look out for one another, because we're all grieving.
Yeah.
So, wow, what a powerful time. It was such an honor. Thank you for spending this time with me, with
Yeah.
your
Thanks
pregnant
for
self.
having me. This was such a good conversation. Like, I don't want it to end, to be honest with you.
I know, girl. We could go on for hours. So we need to do
Yeah.
part 2, you and I, but we need to get Kenny on. I cannot
Yes.
wait to meet him. That would be
Yeah.
so much fun. But
Yeah.
tell people, where can they find you to find the whole single woman? Tell them all the things. Where
Sure.
can they find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, it's just my name, Adrianna P. Wilder. I am like the worst with like doing social media and stuff like that, but Adrianna P.
Same.
Wilder. But I have a website, wholesinglewoman.com. You can go in there and just put your email in to get our updates. We send out emails a couple times a week. And so that'll be cool if you get those. On Facebook, we have a private group, as well as a public page, Whole Single Woman. So feel free to check us out there. We have some different things that are coming up throughout the year that I usually post on Instagram. And my husband is making me revive my TikTok, because I had a TikTok. I closed it down because I just didn't feel like doing it. And he was like, I just went on there and saw all of your videos. You need to open this. And so I said, okay. So, I'm about to do some stuff, because my husband will not let me hide anymore, especially now that I'm not working a full-time job. He's like,
Right.
you could do this. You home all the time. So
You could do
but
this.
yes, sir. So I'm
I
gonna be
love
working on some stuff. But yeah, you can find us there. And yeah, and we're all about healing. We're all about, inviting people on and helping them go deeper into healing, so that way God can actually get them ready for what he has already prepared for them.
I love it. And we couldn't have, we've been planning this since December. I cannot even believe it's hitting Valentine's week.
That's crazy.
So
We didn't plan that either.
we did not plan that, and we're
No.
publishing it Valentine's week.
Yeah.
For that reason, because listen, I have my sisters out there. You know who you are, and I know you listen, because
Yeah.
those are like my 5 people that listen every week.
I love it.
I got my single girls out there, 40s, 50s, 60s, never
Yep.
been married. It's listen, look Adrianna up.
Yes.
So thank you so much for doing this. I can't
You're
wait to do it
welcome,
again.
sis. Yeah. Love you so much. I
Everyone,
appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Well, happy Valentine's, everyone. Thanks for breaking script with us. Be sure to follow and hit that subscribe button. Go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review, please. And make sure to never miss an episode. Bye.
Bye.